Don and his two younger kids and I lived in Fiss It, New Jersey for a while. Keith was 6 and Tracy was 10 when they first moved up to live with their father. Well, I couldn't stand New Jersey, especially Passaic. But somehow it reminded Don of Roanoke, Virginia, where he grew up, so he wanted to be there. One day, Don needed some shirts or something, so he drove to Simms to do some shopping. He drove up in his Cadillac, which was about the size of the apartment uptown that he lived in when I first met him. Drove into the parking lot and got out of the car wearing some brand new running shoes. Not that he ever ran, mind you. He just ran those gnarly, ancient-looking fingers up and down the piano keys, and in a Hammond 3B organ sometimes, if you were lucky. Our Dr. Carno said he had the hands of an old soul, but Fred Hopkins said they looked like cadaver hands. Whatever they were, he could play the most amazing music with those hands. He'd start so delicate and warm and deep, felt like you were in church. His brother said something's rolling around in there, something's rolling around in there, and there was. And then he'd start with that right hand, those swirls and clusters. And then he'd get the rhythms going with his elbow. It was like an exquisite storm of nature. But melodically so precise and articulated. It was the most powerful and amazing music you can imagine. Anyway, Don needed some shirts or something, so he went into Simms, did some shopping, and took care of his business, and went back out to the parking lot. And the security guard followed him out and stopped him, demanding a receipt for those brand new running shoes. See, it didn't matter how many people stood in line carrying stacks of albums and CDs of Don's for him to autograph when he played in Japan or wherever it was in the world. At Simms in New Jersey, he was just some black man walking out of the store wearing brand new running shoes, which he just must have stolen. Sigh, sigh. Oh, hey, para, hey, para, hey, para, hey, para. Hey, 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 para, hey, para, hey, para, hey, para. Hey, 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 pitch it up, mama. One day, Don and I went to the Secaucus outlet stores to get some stuff for ourselves and the kids. I needed some shoes, so I went into this little store, and I saw these great shoes. They were like little jazz shoes, you know, the little soft black leather, little lace-up ones. Only these were made for the street, so they were perfect. Only trouble is they didn't have my size. I told Don about it, and he got that funny expression on his face. He said, "I'll fiss it." Fiss it. That's what he said. It was like our code. Because, you know, when he wanted to, he could do things. He could kind of fix things. So he walked up to those shoes, and he looked and he noticed there was a box on there turned around backwards on the shelf. So he pulled it out, turned it around, looked at it. It said size 8.5. I'm a size 5.5. But he opened that box anyway, pulled out those shoes, looked at them and handed them to me with that funny look still on his face. Sure enough, those little bad boys were size 5.5 because he fissed it. He fissed it for me. Oh, hey, para, hey, para, hey, para, hey, para, hey, 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 para, hey, para, hey, para, hey, para, One year, Don and I went to Europe to do this little European tour together. It wasn't like the marathon jazz tours that he'd play, you know, one-nighters in every town, town after city after night, you know, for weeks, usually for a month, one time for 2 months straight. Half the time he didn't know where the hell he was. No, this was my tour, so it was just a handful of cities in Germany, you know, towns here and there. It was nice. Anyway, we were in one place, and we got hungry, so we went to this outdoor cafe. And we're sitting there looking at the menu. All of a sudden, Don said, "Yeah, that's disgusting, hamburger ice cream." And I laughed. And Don got that serious, almost mad look on his face, because you see, he was very intelligent, and he hated it when he missed something. But I couldn't help it, I just laughed. I said, "Don, do you have any idea what town you're in?" "Hamburger ice cream." "Oh, hey, parado, 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 chinena, do mama, do. Well, we did our concert, and we went to the next town. I think it was Hanover next. And we got hungry again. So, it seemed to happen to us every day. So we walked up to another restaurant. Don was sporting his summer hat, shorts, socks up to his mid-calf, and some brand new running shoes. We walked into that restaurant, arm in arm. Fine-looking couple that we were, or so we thought, because as soon as we walked inside, everybody in the restaurant looked at us and stopped talking. Could it be? Were those brand new running shoes? Oh, hey, parado, 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 chinning out the back, the back, the back, the back, the back, the back. Well, by the spring of 1995, Don was really sick. They admitted him to the hospital, to Memorial Sloan Kettering. He wasn't doing too well. I was mostly just staying there with him, you know, sleeping when I could in the chair near the bed, until he kind of discreetly had to let me know that I was starting to smell. He better take a break to, you know, wash up and change, because there were people coming to the hospital to see him, and like, you know, family and friends and musicians and the record company president and all. They were coming so Don could cheer him up. Yeah, his spirits were strong like that, only his body wouldn't rally this time, and he knew it. One day he said to me, "Jana, I don't want you to hold me back." I said, "I won't, Don. I want your spirit to be free. It's just I've worried for so long about the ones I've loved who've died, whether they're okay." And he said, "I don't know if I'll have time, but I'll try to give you a sign." Don didn't want to die in the hospital. So the week before he died, when there was nothing more the doctors could do for him, we took him back to his brother and Brother Butch and sister-in-law Sam's apartment in New Jersey, where he'd have a lot of love and family and support. And he did. The day before he died, the palliative care team from Sloan Kettering came out to see him. And he waited with great anticipation for their visit and their assessment of his condition. Ooh, the weight of those professional words. And the doctor came in and examined him. And then all she said to him was, "Don, you don't have to worry about eating anymore." And he looked at her and swallowed hard, trying to digest all that inferred. After that, he had just one more question for them. As he tried to assimilate and make some kind of sense out of the apparent imminent reality right upon him, he just really needed to understand. And so he asked whether that plastic oxygen tube attached to his nose was going to hold him back from making his transition. Months later, at his memorial service at St. Peter's, the doctor marveled at what she had thought was his ever-enduring sense of humor. Oh, hip-a-da, 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 chicken-a, boo-ba-ba, 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 chicken-a. After they left, things really started to escalate really fast. Don's body just went crazy. And by late that night, he couldn't speak anymore. He just came around for one brief moment in the morning, long enough to say to me, "This is hell." And that was it. Sam called his children and told them that they better get there right away to see their father. And Tracy drove up from school immediately, stopped and picked up her brother Keith, and they drove to the apartment and they walked into that bedroom and walked up to that rented hospital bed and went to hug their father, and they were overwhelmed by his condition. It's amazing how ill-prepared we almost always all are in such cases, no matter what. Kids went in the other room and Tracy tried to do her homework, and we waited. And Don waited in hell. Finally, little Don and his girlfriend showed up. And little Don walked into the room and walked up to that hospital bed and hugged his father. And then Don died immediately. Everybody started crying, and Tracy and Keith ran into the room, and Tracy started screaming and grabbing onto me, saying something about the hospital, and saying, "You'll know what to do. Jana, I know you'll know what to do." But there was nothing I could do. Sam and Butch got everybody out of the room so that little Don's girlfriend, Charlene, who happened to be an oncology nurse, and I could clean Don up, since his bowels had let loose when he was dying. So we turned him over and we washed him up really well. We put on clean pajamas, turned him back on his back, and placed those cadaver hands on some organ. Turns out Fred Hopkins was right after all. After a little while, I went in the other room to make sure the kids were okay. And somebody who went back into the bedroom, I guess it must have been his brother Butch, all of a sudden let out this shriek, "Look at this!" And I went running running back in, and the most amazing, beautiful, peaceful, contented smile had settled itself on Don's mouth, and his whole face. He had the most beautiful smile. It hadn't been there before, through the hell. But it stayed with him all the way back in his trip back home to Roanoke, Virginia, and through his funeral and everything. And I knew that was the side that he told me about, because he fissed it. He fissed it for us.